Welcome back. The U.S. and Iran agreeing to a 2-week ceasefire hours before President Trump's deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face destruction. Fox News can confirm this morning there is movement right now in the Strait of Hormuz. Ships are passing through. President Trump confirming the ceasefire on Truth Social early this morning. Pardon me. Saying, quote, a big day for world peace. Iran wants to make it happen. The U.S. will be helping with the traffic buildup in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, in the hours leading up to this deal, Iran and its leadership reportedly instructed civilians and children to form human chains around power plants and bridges in the region. People were seen lining up there as the president, of course, was threatening that there would be total destruction of bridges and power plants. The Kuwait ministry, meanwhile, on the other hand, urged citizens to stay inside and avoid going out until today. Joining me now is Kentucky Congressman Andy Barr, member of the House Foreign Affairs and China Select Committee. Congressman, what a morning. This is causing massive movement on markets across the board this morning, with oil prices plummeting and stocks rallying. What are your thoughts on this development?
Well, President Ronald Reagan may have pioneered the doctrine of peace through strength, but President Donald Trump is perfecting it. President Trump, with Operation Midnight Hammer and now with Operation Epic Fury, has created massive amounts of leverage for the United States to achieve a lasting and durable peace with a world that doesn't have a nuclear Iran, a world that no longer faces an Iran with ballistic missiles or drones or a navy. Anyone who believes that Operation Epic Fury has not been an epic success is either living under a rock or has late-stage Trump derangement syndrome. This operation has been a remarkable success at defanging the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, really. And, you know, you had your colleagues on the left yesterday trying to attack President Trump. Meanwhile, it looks like he has threaded this needle just perfectly in terms of defanging what could have been a nuclear terrorist, and, in fact, doing so with just a minimal impact to markets here. Your thoughts on checking up on this? How will the United States know that Iran keeps to its promises here?
Well, this is a 2-week ceasefire, and so trust but verify, as Reagan famously said. And I know our commander-in-chief now is not going to trust the regime in Tehran. And by the way, just consider the achievements of the last several weeks with this incredible operation and the brave skill and mastery of the U.S. military. We've eliminated and obliterated the nuclear infrastructure of Iran. We have reduced the ballistic missile and drone capabilities by over 90%. Over 150 naval vessels are at the bottom of the Persian Gulf or the Indian Ocean for Iran. The ability of Iran to project power and destabilize the region has been materially diminished as a result of this. The last phase of this, obviously, is going to be to secure a durable and lasting open Strait of Hormuz so that global energy markets can ultimately have long-term stability. And the fact that we have this ceasefire now, the fact that oil tankers are going to be moving with the assistance of the United States and the protection of the United States is a credit to the leverage that the president has given himself through the successful military operations. Consider the fact that the U.S. military has taken out over 13,000 military targets, defense industrial base targets, and only one F-15 aircraft was downed. And through the skill and bravery of the American military, fortunately, that pilot and the weapon system officer, the brave colonel, were recovered, showing the exquisite capabilities of the United States military. That's not just deterrence with Iran. It's deterrence against all of our adversaries. Believe me, Beijing, Moscow, Pyongyang, Havana, they're all paying attention to the incredible bravery, skill, and capabilities of the United States military as a result of this effort. This president is not going to accept anything other than a durable and lasting peace and a free and open channels of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz so that energy prices will come down over the long run.
Yeah. And of course, now the president will have to deal with our allies, and I say that in quotes. China reportedly assisted Iran's missile program, sending multiple shipments of missile fuel material aimed at helping to rebuild Iran's defense capability. It comes after a Bahrain-led UN resolution to reopen the Strait of Hormuz failed because of vetoes from both Russia and China. A new draft resolution from Moscow and Beijing is expected within the next 2 days, Congressman. But what is your advice or guidance here on dealing with China, which has obviously been complicit throughout all of this?
Sanctions. Sanctions for any material support of this successor regime. Look, the Ayatollah is dead. The regime is on life support. We cannot allow other adversaries of the United States to provide a lifeline to Iran that would allow them any daylight to reconstitute its capabilities. I think I give a lot of credit to the war planners in the Pentagon and General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and Pete Hegseth for designing a strategy that not only took out the ability of the Iranians to project offensive capabilities against the United States, Israel, and our Arab allies in the region, but also to take out the defense industrial base. We cannot allow China or other adversarial nations to give Iran a lifeline. And so if there is any of that material support going forward, the United States needs to exert its considerable powers of sanctions.
Yeah, and Ashley Davis is with me this morning. Ashley, I want to get your take on this in terms of the perception of voters in all of this. I said yesterday that this market is showing a firmer tone, and to me is indicative of the markets have confidence in President Trump. And that's what you're seeing play out this morning. There's confidence in this leadership of this president. Your thoughts on how voters are going to view this now, we're a few months away from the midterm elections?
Well, and I think 100% it's going to be about the gas prices going down, making sure that the grocery prices are continuing to go down. I'm sure that the congressman knows better than anybody when he's touring the state of Kentucky that gas prices are still going to be a major issue. But I think I've always been saying that the president had 1 or 2 more weeks to get this done, to kind of start transitioning to the next stage before we hit Memorial Day, before we hit summer, and before voters are really thinking about who they're voting for. And I think that, and also, listen, Congressman, you're not dealing with a war powers resolution in the next couple weeks now that was going to be triggered by the end of April because of this ceasefire happening. And I think that's significantly important as well.
I mean, look where oil is this morning, Congressman, plummeting. You've got the price of oil down 17%, but we've got another eye on gasoline prices, which are still elevated. The U.S. average for a gallon of regular, $4.16 a gallon. You're leading the Kentucky Republican Senate primary with 28% support right now. This new Emerson College poll is favoring and has you up. You're also pushing for a legislative package aimed at revitalizing and resetting Kentucky's coal industry. Give us your platform in terms of energy.
Well, you know, we're in a race for AI dominance against the Chinese Communist Party. And Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, says that China is only nanoseconds behind the United States on AI. And they're militarizing AI through wargaming, targeting, intelligence gathering, certainly with autonomous systems, drones, submarines, surface ships. And so we have to stay ahead and consider that the country that leads in AI is going to be the country that sets the rules and the norms for AI. So it's vitally important that we win that race. But at the base of the AI technology stack is that you have to have baseload firm dispatchable power. And we have made a major strategic mistake in this country under Barack Obama and Joe Biden to prematurely retire 290 coal-fired power plants in this country. Over 120 gigawatts of coal-fired electricity generation has been retired in this country precisely at the time when AI data center energy demand is skyrocketing.
Yeah.
It's projected that we're going to be increasing demand for electricity in this country 2 or 3 times over the next 5 years because of the demand for baseload power. So we have to. It's not a question of whether we should. We have to put our coal miners back to work. and develop a nuclear energy to provide that baseload power.
Sure, fair point. And it is the reason the president has zeroed in on the Strait of Hormuz. By the way, the Omani transportation minister says our position on the Strait of Hormuz is clear. No tolls can be imposed for crossing it. Shipping lanes are international waters, which is a really important point there. Congressman, I'm going to be following your work and, of course, your race. Thanks very much for being here this morning.
Thank you very much.
Andy Barr. We'll be right back. Stay with us.